few years ago, I ran into some hard times, and I couldn't afford a place to live. So I was looking online, and I saw all these people that are finding alternative ways to live. They were building tiny houses. They were converting vans so that I could live into them. And so in the summer of 2001, I moved into a Hamburger. It was a very good setup. I could stay mobile. Um, Wherever I was at the end of the day, I could take my hamburger out of my pocket. I would lay the bun down on the ground, put some lettuce and tomatoes on, and then I would lie down. And on top, I would put the bun and the patty, maybe some pickles. Good night, guys. I'm going to sleep in my hamburger now. When it got cold, I would just add some extra toppings. When it got very cold, I would just go into McDonald's and I would set up on one of the tables. There are so many hamburgers at McDonald's that no one would really see the difference. If there was one more hamburger in McDonald's, they really couldn't tell. And so I was able to stealth camp there, and that was a very good setup for me. It started catching on. Living in food, people caught on to this trend, and they really just wanted to live how their ancestors did. And so this became a big thing. There was a news story about one girl moved into a piece of French toast. Another guy moved into a blueberry. At a restaurant, someone moved into a steak and potato dinner as the waiter was bringing it out to the customer, and he was trying to catch a good deal on some new real estate, and the customer got pretty upset. After a few bites in, he realized that there was a human inside of their food, and he complained and said, "I would like to talk to the manager." And the guy living in the steak and potato dinner said, "I am the manager. You're talking to me right now. And I would appreciate it if you could get my new home away from your mouth. I would appreciate it if you could stop sprinkling salt and pepper on my new home. Thank you." And so that kind of tarnished the name of food livers, because that was a big health code violation. That's not very sanitary to have someone living in your food. So the community took some slack for that. I try to combat this. I would go out to neighborhoods, and I would stand outside people's houses and wait for them to come outside, and I would scoff at them. I'd say, "Really? You're in the 21st century, you're still living in a house?" And the guy would say, "Yeah, I live in a house. Do you live in a van or something? What's your deal?" I would say, "No, actually, I live in a hamburger, sir." And then I would carry around a bag of hamburgers with me, and I would just throw them at these people, just to give them a brief introduction to the hamburger lifestyle. I would also take out billboards. I would buy them out and just have things written on them. "I live in a hamburger, and you should too." I was just out there advertising. Some people didn't like this, and they thought it was obnoxious of me, and this further tarnished the name of hashtag food lifers. So I had to go into exile, because people just hated me so much and my food lifestyle, much like Yoda and Obi-Wan did at the end of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, when all the clone troopers turned on them, as well as Anakin Skywalker, and massacred all the Jedi. So I just went into the woods, and I traveled around for a while, and eventually I decided to set my roots down, and I found a nice field and made a permanent hamburger home for myself. And I lived there for roughly 20 years. Until one day, some people from a oil pipeline company came. They said, "You got to move your hamburger. We're building an oil pipeline through here." I said, "Buddy, I've lived here for 20 years. I'm not leaving this hamburger." And so then a kind of standoff began, where these construction workers, they would take shifts, and they would just stand there verbally abusing me, just saying things like, "Hey, come on, get out of that hamburger. You've been in that hamburger long enough. Come on, it's time to get out of there." And this would go on for days and days on end. And eventually they realized this tactic wasn't working, and they had to try something else. So they kind of stirred up a witch hunt, where they spread rumors in neighboring towns that there were witches living in the woods, and people came out en masse. They were very eager to hunt some witches, and they were burning a lot of people at the stake. They tried to burn me at the stake, but I eventually convinced them that, hey, I'm not a witch. I'm just a guy living in a hamburger over here. Could you please not burn me alive? And they came to their senses and realized that, yeah, there was nothing really magical or witch-like about me, and I was indeed just living in a hamburger. So that night, that was kind of a stressful day for me. That night, I went to sleep a little early, and I had a dream that there was a rabbit flying an airplane, and I teleported onto this airplane. When I got there, there were no passengers on board. There were just 2 flight attendants, and they told me that the captain was waiting for me, and they ushered me into the cockpit. And the control room of the cockpit was not made out of traditional airplane metals. They were made out of silver and gold. All the buttons and dials were studded with gemstones, rubies, diamonds, emeralds. And the bunny pilot turned to me and he said, "Come sit down with me. Come fly this plane with me." And so I sat down in the co-pilot seat and I flew the plane with him. And we just sat there for a few hours and flew in silence. Eventually, he said something while still gazing out the window. He said, "Hey, do you have a cigarette?" I said, "I'm sorry, I don't." And the rabbit started laughing, and we just kept flying. I woke up the next day, and I immediately knew that I had just received a divine vision from God, and that rabbit that asked me for a cigarette was God, and he had a message for me. So I called a meeting with the construction workers, and I said, "Look, there's plenty of room in this hamburger. Build your pipeline right through it. We can share." And that is the story of how I came to be roommates with a oil pipeline. And we eventually became best friends, and we still keep in touch today. We got some real great sharks coming up. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here, and we'll return with our final 3 contestants for the Shark Talent Show. Please keep in mind that I know I'm just kind of springing this on you guys right now, but you guys are going to be the judges of the Shark Talent Show tonight. So make sure you're taking notes and just be observant, because I'm going to pass out some papers at the end of all this, and you guys are going to vote, and you guys will decide the winner of the triannual Shark Talent Show here. All right, we'll return in 5 minutes. Yeah.